जय गुरु जी संगत जी। गुरु जी की आज्ञा से आगे बढ़ते हैं। पहले हम कल का थोड़ा सा लेट्स ब्रश अप व्हाट वी हैड रेड यस्टरडे। कल हमने पढ़ा था कि स्वामी जी ने हमें बताया, स्वामी रामा जी ने, that how to renunciate, they had a scuffle and they became famous because of their outer appearance of living naked in cold climate. बाकी स्वामी जी कहते हैं, but they were full of ego, anger and jealousy. In fact, they detested each other. They had hatred for each other. So Swamiji realized that even after renouncing wealth, चाहे आप पैसा renounce कर दो, अपना घर, relatives, wife and children, but one cannot easily renounce the lust for name and fame. तो स्वामी जी ने ऐसे बताया। फिर स्वामी जी कहते कि that I've met many householders who are far superior, than renunciates. Actually, Swami ji कहते the inner condition is more important than the external way of living. जो आपकी अंदर की अवस्था है ना, वो ज्यादा काउंट करती है। उसके बाद स्वामी जी कहते being Swami is not an easy job and sankalp is very important. You cannot change your circumstances, but with strength and determination you can go through life successfully. उसके बाद स्वामी जी कहते meditation becomes your very nature, when you give up attachment, anger and pride. जब आप anger, attachment, pride छोड़ देते हैं ना, तो ये आपकी एक second nature ही बन जाती है। कहते then it's not that you really have to pose for meditation because you live on that path. फिर स्वामी जी ने हमें बताया, we learnt about Anandamayi Mata ji, it's like, she said that the path of love is a path of self-surrender. Then we came to know about the Bhakti Yoga, it is based on self-sacrifice, reverence, and compassion. Then we learnt about Janani Yoga, it's a path of knowledge, and it's like, yoga of the intellect. उसके बाद हमने ये भी जाना कि constant company of the sages and contemplation with the help of non-attachment, are the most important requisites in this, in this path. उसके बाद कर्म योगा कौन सा है, जब आप अपनी ड्यूटी सेल्फलेसली करते हैं। और उसके बाद Kundalini yoga के बारे में हमें पता लगा कि yes, it involves understanding the body, the nervous system and various channels of energy. और जो primal force होती है ना, which is in the sleeping state at the base of the spinal column, जब हम उसको consciously awaken कर देते हैं ना, through the Sushmana to the highest of the chakras. और Sushmana क्या है? It is the most subtle channel on which the primal force, okay, the primal force prevails. उसके बाद हमें जाना कि Shakti is the divine mother who manifests the universe, and Raj Yoga is the path of systematic discipline. It's the most comprehensive path and is highly systematic. फिर हमने ये भी जाना कि जो श्री विद्या है ना, वो सबसे highest है of all the paths and is practiced by only few people. Then Anandamayi Ma said that one should choose the path best suited to a person, nothing should be forced, because devotion means total dedication, surrender and love for the Lord. It is the path of the heart, path of a heart, Then it means to accept the existence of the Lord, or tranquility of mind is very, very important and one should cultivate that. और बाकी argument में कुछ भी नहीं रखा है। और उसके बाद we learned about that greatest woman saint, जो वो थे ना, Sufi saint who used to live in small dargah, and we came to know that she never ever slept, and Swamiji called her BBG lovingly, and she had a mysterious way of living. And she said that I'll wait for my, I wait for my beloved day and night, and I'm gonna wait for him, till eternity, because her love for divine was so, divine, so pious. It was on some another level. And Swamiji would see powerful light emanating from her eyes, and she used to be in divine ecstasy all the time. And she had unfathomable love for God. और जब उन्होंने अपना शारीरिक चोला छोड़ा, तो उनके हृदय में जो ऐसी रोशनी निकली, बिल्कुल बिजली की तरह ऊपर चलती गई। And then last में हमने उड़िया बाबा के बारे में जाना, that उन्होंने भी बोला कि जरूरी नहीं है आपको रिनाउंस करना है वर्ल्ड, बस सिर्फ ये है कि yes, the path of renunciation is definitely difficult indeed. और जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको ऑब्जेक्ट्स को रिनाउंस करना है, पर आपको क्या रिनाउंस करना है? possessiveness ko. What you possess, you don't have to renounce that, but the possessiveness has to be, renounced. And then one should have non-attachment. It's like, yes, it's like a fire that burned your, past some scars. And it doesn't mean that you have to be indifferent to people or to objects. और ये भी है कि yes, नॉन अटैचमेंट आपको फ्रीडम देता है, और जो अटैचमेंट है वो आपको फिर बॉन्डेज में ला देती है. और उसके बाद हमने हीलिंग के बारे में जाना, जो फिजिकल, मेंटल और स्पिरिचुअल वे में होती है, और जिनके पास ये शक्ति होती है हीलिंग की, अगर वो मिस यूज करें तो ऑफ कोर्स उनकी पावर उनके हाथ से जा भी सकती है, और हर इंसान के हाथ में है healing ki power. Okay, today it's new chapter. We're going to start in the ashram of Mahatma Gandhi ji. तो जिस तरह से परमहंस योगानंदा जी भी मिले थे महात्मा गांधी जी को, तो इधर स्वामी जी भी महात्मा गांधी जी को मिले. स्वामी जी कहते हैं, in the late 1930s and early 40s, I had opportunity to stay with Mahatma Gandhi in Wardha Ashram, where I met many gentle and loving souls. While I was there, I observed Mahatma Gandhi was serving a leper. The leper was a learned Sanskrit scholar who was frustrated and angry, but Mahatma Gandhi personally looked after him with great care and love. That was an example to all of us. तो किस तरह से महात्मा गांधी जी के लिए कोई डाउन ट्रॉडन नहीं था, या कोई किस बीमारी से भी ग्रस्त हो, उनके लिए सब सेम थे. कहते the way in which he served the sick left a lasting impression on me. So indeed, Swamiji was moved by Mahatma Gandhi's his gesture and his devotion and his seva, the way he looked after the people who were suffering from some kind of disease. उसके बाद स्वामी जी कहते हैं, my master told me to observe Mahatma Gandhi particularly when he walked. उनके मास्टर ने कहा, देखना जैसे महात्मा गांधी चलते हैं ना, आप देखना वो किस तरह से चलते हैं. कहते हैं, when I did so, I found that his walk was quite different from the walk of other sages. उनका चलने का तरीका बहुत डिफरेंट था बाकी सेजी से. कहते he walked as though he was separate from his body. ऐसे लग रहा था कि वो अलग है अपनी शरीर से. कहते he seemed to be pulling his body as a horse pulls the cart. He was a man who constantly prayed for others and who had no hatred for any religion, caste, creed, sex or color. तो महात्मा गांधी जी के लिए सब एक समान थे. वो कोई भी ऐसे अपने भेद नहीं करते थे, चाहे वो किसी भी जाति का हो, किसी भी तरह से कहीं का भी हो वो. कहते he had three teachers, Christ, Krishna and Buddha. A pioneer in the realm of ahimsa consciousness, that is non-violence, Gandhi always experimented in expanding man's capacity to love. Such a man finds joy in all the storms and trials of life. Gandhi never protected himself, but rather always protected his one principle of ahimsa or love. तो गांधी जी तो बहुत ही इस चीज के लिए प्रसिद्ध है कि वो हमेशा अहिंसा को बोलते थे, उसको फॉलो करते थे, और वही लोगों को उपदेश भी देते थे उसके बारे में. The flame of love burned in him day and night like a fire which nothing could quench. Complete self-reliance and fearlessness were the foundation stones of Gandhiji's philosophy. Violence touched the very depths of his being, but valiant in a spirit of ahimsa, he walked on alone. There was not a word of protest, and there was not a flicker of hostility in his life. While staying with Gandhi, I noted these principles in my diary. तो स्वामी जी ने अपनी डायरी में नोट करना शुरू किया जो भी गांधी जी के प्रिंसिपल्स थे. वो क्या थे? नंबर 1, non-violence and cowardice cannot go together. Okay, कहते जो non-violence है और cowardice, if you are timid और आप जो भी है उसको, अगर ये चीजें इकट्ठे नहीं चल सकती, because non-violence is a perfect expression of love that cast out fear. क्योंकि non-violence तो ऐसी एक एग्जाम्पल है प्यार की जो डर को निकाल देती है. To be brave because one is armed implies an element of fear. The power of ahimsa is an extremely vital and active force which does not come from physical strength. ये जो पावर, ये जो शक्ति है ना अहिंसा की, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट और इतनी एक्टिव फोर्स है जो कि फिजिकल स्ट्रेंथ से नहीं आती. Number 2, a true follower of ahimsa does not believe in disappointment. He dwells above in perennial happiness and peace. That peace and joy do not come to him who is proud of his intellect or learning. They come to him who is full of faith and has undivided and single pointed mind. Okay, the number three, कहते the intellect can produce many wonders, but non-violence is a matter of the heart. It does not come through intellectual exercises. तो ये जो नॉन वायलेंस है ना वो आपके दिल से आती है, अंदर से आती है, उसमें आपकी कोई एजुकेशन का या कितने आपकी आईक्यू है उससे उसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है. कहते number four, hatred is not overcome by hatred but rather by love. This is an alterable law. ये तो बिल्कुल ही है. हेट्रेड को आप हेट्रेड से नहीं जीत सकते, प्यार से जीत सकते हैं. नंबर फाइव, डिवोशन इज नॉट mere worship with the lips, it is self surrender with mind, action and स्पीच. बिल्कुल जरूरी नहीं है डिवोशन एक उस तरह की चीज है जो आपके बोलने से या लिप से वर्शिप करने से आती है. ये तो अंदर का है, जिस तरह से आपके अंदर की अवस्था है, माइंड की, एक्शन की, स्पीच की. इट्स लाइक अ सेल्फ सरेंडर. कहते number 6, Gandhi did not believe in the barriers created by religions, cultures, superstitions and mistrust. He taught and lived the brotherhood of all religions. Number 7, Gandhi believed in the art of living without concern for the fruits of one's actions. He practiced not worrying about success or failure, but paid attention to the work at hand without feeling the slightest anxiety or fatigue. वही है कि जो भी आप कर्म करें उसके फल की इच्छा ना करें, और जो भी आप काम करें उसको अपने दिल से करें. ऐसा नहीं है you really have to get anxious about the work and you have to go through that fatigue. Number 8, कहते in order to enjoy life one should not be selflessly attached to anything. Non-attachment means to have pure motive and a correct means without any worry or desired result. He who gives up action falls, but who gives up reward rises and is liberated. Okay, that's beautiful. You know, Gandhi ji said, he who gives up actions falls. जो action को give up कर देता है वो गिरता है, but who gives up the reward, जो उसकी रिवॉर्ड की इच्छा छोड़ देता है वो ही ऊपर उठता है और वो लिबरेट हो जाता है. Number 9, yoga is the complete reintegration of all the states of mind, the intellect, senses, emotions, instincts, and every level of personality. It is a process of becoming whole. Okay, number 10, one's mantra becomes one staff of life and carries one through every ordeal. Each repetition has a new meaning and carries one nearer and nearer to God. It is capable of transforming that which is negative in the personality into which is positive, and it can gradually integrate divided and opposing thoughts at deeper and deeper levels of consciousness. After meeting many wonderful and striking personalities like Mahadev Desai, Meera Ben, and Prabhavati Behen, I became friendly with the son of Mahatma Gandhi and took him to Kasoni, one of the fascinating and beautiful places of the Himalayas. तो ये तो हो गई स्वामी जी की महात्मा गांधी जी से मुलाकात. महात्मा गांधी जी ने भी वही उनकी बहुत बहुत बड़े उपदेश रहे हैं, और उनकी वही जो हमने पहले भी जाना इस किताब में, नॉन अटैचमेंट होनी चाहिए, अहिंसा होनी चाहिए, और अंदर से आपकी यू गॉट टू बी रियली रियली केयरफुल अबाउट योर माइंड, एक्शन एंड स्पीच. ये चीजें मैटर करती हैं, सेल्फ सरेंडर मैटर करता है. ओके, नाउ आगे स्वामी जी की मुलाकात रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर जी से होती है. द नेक्स्ट चैप्टर्स नेम इज नॉट सैक्रिफाइस बट कॉन्क्वेस्ट. जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको सेक्रीफाइस करना है, पर हर चीज को आप जीतने की भी कोशिश कर सकते हैं. Swamiji कहते हैं, when I was a teenager, I often traveled with my brother disciple Dandi Swami Shivananda of Gangotri, who was about 20 years older than I. कहते हैं, once we went on a journey to Mussoorie, a holiday resort at the foot of the Himalayas. On the way, we stopped at a small town called Rajpur. During those days, Tagore, a famous poet of the East, was staying in a cottage there. My brother disciple was from Bengal and knew Tagore and his family well, so we went to visit him. We were invited to live in the same cottage with him for 2 months. तो स्वामी जी को 2 महीने का सुनहरा मौका मिला वहां रहने का. कहते Tagore became fond of me and asked my Okay, okay, I guess it got disconnected. मैं दोबारा से पढ़ती हूँ. ये जो new chapter है, Not Sacrifice but Conquest, Tagore. Swamiji कहते, when I was a teenager, I often traveled with my brother disciple Dandi Swami Shivananda of Gangotri, who was about 20 years older than I. Once we went on a journey to Mussoorie, a holiday resort at the foot of the Himalayas. On the way, we stopped at a small town called Rajpur. During those days, Tagore, a famous poet of the East, was staying there in a cottage there. My brother disciple was from Bengal and knew Tagore and his family well, so we went to visit him. We were invited to live in the same cottage with him for 2 months. Yet the Tagore became fond of me and asked my brother disciple to send me to Shanti Niketan, the educational institution he had founded. So Swami Ji Shanti Niketan gaye. They strongly felt a desire to visit Shanti Niketan and went there in 1940. Rabindranath Tagore, the son of Rabindranath Tagore, I'm sorry, I think I read it wrongly. Ratindranath Tagore, the son of Rabindranath Tagore, received me and arranged for me to stay in one of the cottages next to Sri Mallikaji, who was a devout and committed admirer of Tagore and his institute. Shanti Niketan was then one of the most beautiful and fascinating ashrams of the world. Several hundred students lived and studied there. Shanti Niketan to Rabindranath Tagore ji ka बहुत प्यारा आश्रम रहा है. Tagore was known as Gurudeva by the students of Shanti Niketan and as Thakur by the general public. He was very gifted poet from Bengal and one of the greatest poets of all times in the realms of religions, philosophy, literature, music, painting, and education. His many-sided, handsome, and towering personality was well known to the world. During the period I lived with Tagore, I was able to observe his devotion to his work. तो स्वामी जी को बहुत अच्छा मौका मिला है टैगोर जी को बहुत क्लोज अपनी क्लोजनेस से इतने प्रॉक्सिमिटी से जानने का. कहते मैंने उनके सारे काम को ऑब्जर्व किया. He was always engaged in his daily practice or was busy writing or painting. He spent very few hours in sleep and would not recline in the daytime. The infirmities of age did not change his habits. I looked upon him as an earnest sadhak, spiritual seeker. Yet it is true that one object of all sadhaks of the world is to be somewhat godlike. It was not necessary for a godlike man like Tagore to imitate other godmen of India in order to express himself. His life was not like that of an ascetic, which is as barren as a desert. Asceticism is the most ancient path of enlightenment, and genuine asceticism is indeed worthy of reverence. Equally worthy is treading of the more difficult path of remaining in the world while doing one's duties. Tagore believed in living in the world without being of it. तो टैगोर जी भी यही मानते थे कि दुनिया में रह के पर अपने आप को दुनिया से ऊपर उठा के ही रहना असली जीने का मतलब है. कहते a line from one of his poems, liberation by detachment from the world is not mine, is highly expressive of his philosophy. The key point of his life was not sacrifice but conquest. So humanity has seen three kinds of great men. First, those who were gifted and great by birth. Second, those who have attained greatness by sincere and selfless effort. And third, those unfortunate ones on whom greatness is thrust by the press and publicity. Tagore was in first category. तो टैगोर जी की फर्स्ट कैटेगरी में यही थे ना कि वो by birth he was gifted. Tagore was in the first category a gifted and highly talented poet and genius. He lived and practiced according to the sayings of the Upanishads. All whosoever that moves in the universe is indwelt by the Lord. Enjoy though what had been allotted by him. Covet not the wealth of anyone. कहते उनकी भी थिंकिंग यही है रही है किसी की भी चीज को पराया पैसा हो या कुछ हो उस पे हमें नहीं लेना चाहिए और जो भी ईश्वर ने आपको दिया है उसी से संतुष्ट रहना चाहिए. कहते I admire Tagore. He was the most universal, encompassing and complete human being I have known. He was a living embodiment of the whole of humanity, who knew both man the knower and man the maker. He believed in allowing a person to grow by satisfying both the demands of society and the need for solitude. Sometimes I used to call him the Plato of the East. His views about the East and West were highly admitted by the people of both these cultures. Tagore did not want Westerners to become Easterners in their minds and outward behavior. He wanted the West to join hands with the East in the noble contest for the promotion of the highest ideas which are common to the whole world. आगे कहते हैं, according to him, the evolution of man is the evolution of the creative personality. Man alone has the courage of standing against the biological laws. Beyond all great nations and noble works done in the world, there have been noble ideas. An idea is that something which is the very basis of creativity. It is true that life is full of misfortunes, but fortunate is he who knows how to utilize the idea which can make him creative. तो ये बड़ी अच्छी सीख दी है टैगोर जी ने, रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर जी ने. कहते हैं ठीक है, पता है लाइफ में तो ये चीजें आएंगी, लाइफ इज फुल ऑफ मिसफॉर्चून्स, पर वो बहुत लकी है, वो बहुत फॉर्चुनेट है जो इस चीज को यूटिलाइज कर देते हैं, अपने एडवर्सिटी के टाइम को भी मतलब उसको दूसरी तरफ चैनलाइज करके कुछ क्रिएटिव करते हैं, उसका भी फायदा उठाते हैं. कि the time is the greatest of all filters and ideas are the best of all wealth. Fortune is that rare opportunity which helps one to express his ideas and abilities at his proper time. Tagore's philosophy surmounted all the obstacles which at first obscure the truth. According to him, death has for ages been a source of fear and misery because people have not pondered over the truth. All who suffer and fear the approach of death should hear and learn the music of Tagore, which teaches us how to lose yourself in the infinite and the eternal. Just tune the chords of your being and make them move in harmony with the music of the cosmos. Every woman and man should strive to secure the light of truth and live simply and wisely for the common good. The rhythm of music supported Tagore's philosophy of life. Music completed his personality, but this is not all. His words and melodies are still going in the minds of poets and musicians today. Tagore believed that all existences constitute the one organism of the entire cosmos, admitting love as the highest manifestation of its vital energy and having as its soul the central of spiritual galaxy. तो मतलब तो ये है ना, प्यार तो है ही है ना, सबसे बड़ी एक एनर्जी है. कहते हैं the world so far talks only about the religion of God, but Tagore always talked of the religion of man. It's a religion of feeling through a static experience which represents opinion in its most intense and living stage, offering a far better solution to the ills of life than philosophy and metaphysics. Love of God is a sympathetic and synthetic response. The finite being is as much as requirement for God as God for the finite being. The soul of the lotus goes on blossoming for ages in which I am bound as though without escape. There is no end to the opening of its petals, and the honey in it has such sweetness that thou, like an enchanted being, canst never desert it, and therefore thou art bound, and I am, and salvation is nowhere. After staying at Shantiniketan, I decided to leave for the Himalayas to assimilate the ideas I required there and then formulate certain guidelines for my future. Swami ji aage kehte hain, I still remember a few striking lines from Tagore's poems. I read in the problem of life in the world. I read in the problem of life in the world, the twist of tears and joy. I see before myself the busy feet of the wind, suggesting humanity and law. The wind hastens to the shadow whose passion lies. Shall we go abroad and start anew? O wind, to build again a better life in song. तो जिस तरह की भी स्वामी जी के, हमें पता है टैगोर जी की जो इतनी महान पोम्स हो चुकी हैं, and what a beautiful, what an enchanting poet he has been. उसके बाद ये कुछ हिस्ट्री के ऊपर है. I am going to read it a little fast. So that क्योंकि थोड़ा ब्रिटिशर्स के ऊपर आ जाएगा हिस्ट्री के ऊपर, and it's really really lengthy. उसके बाद फिर स्वामी जी की जो मुलाकात होंगी सेजेस के, उसके बारे में पढ़ेंगे. The name of the chapter is Setting History Straight. Swami ji कहते हैं, when I was about 20 years of age, I traveled to Shimla, one of the holiday resorts in the Punjab Himalayas. I met a Swami there whom the people called Punjabi Maharaj. So Swami ji Punjabi Maharaj ko mile. कहते, he was very tall, healthy, handsome, and a learned man. I had an umbrella in my hand. कहते मेरे हाथ में एक अम्ब्रेला था और उन्होंने मुझे पूछा, why do you carry such a burden? Be free. अपने आप को free करो. Why are you holding this umbrella? As we were walking together, it started to rain. Since I had the umbrella, I opened it. Obviously, Swami ji कहते बारिश होगी तो मैंने तो umbrella फिर खोली. He said, what are you doing? I answered, I'm protecting us from the rain. He said, don't do that. This is a link between heaven and earth. कहते, why should we be deprived of that? Throw away your umbrella and other belongings if you want to walk with me. तो वो जो पंजाबी महाराज थे, बिल्कुल nature lover, you know, he didn't want any kind of obstruction, you know, between heaven and earth. तो Swami ji कहते, I protested, Swami ji, I'll get wet. He told me, if you are afraid of getting your clothes wet, either don't wear clothes or walk freely or get out of the rain. So very blatantly that Swamiji, you know, that Punjabi Maharaj said, कहते अगर तुम्हें डर लगता है that you're gonna get drenched और तुम्हारे कपड़े भीग जाएंगे तो मत पहनो ना कपड़े, freely walk करो और चले जाओ, नहीं तो यहाँ से just get out of the rain. What he said affected me. I left the umbrella right there on the path. Since then, when it rains and I'm outside, I really enjoy it. So Swami ji कहते उसके बाद I really pondered over what he said and see जो भी है ईश्वर की ये जो देन है, ये nature है, you know, we should enjoy it thoroughly. We should just soak ourselves. तो स्वामी जी कहते मैंने फिर बाहर जब भी बारिश होती है, I like to get myself drenched. I love the raindrops falling on me and I thoroughly enjoy it. कहते in the winter, the Swami would walk about wearing only this thin cotton garb. It was his only possession. He was a man with a very sensitive nature, but he had completely mastered his sensitivity to heat and cold. तो उन्होंने एक अपनी कहते कुछ भी वेदर हो वो सिर्फ कॉटन के कपड़े पहनते थे. उन्होंने मास्टर कर लिया था ना, बॉडी अपनी बॉडी को ऐसा बना लिया था कि इम्यून हो गई थी, चाहे गर्मी हो चाहे सर्दी हो. When the mind contacts the objects of the world through the senses, it experiences sensations of pain and pleasure. कहते वो तो बिल्कुल है ना, जब माइंड कंटैक्ट द ऑब्जेक्ट थ्रू द सेंसेस, जब सेंसेस के थ्रू परसीव करता है ना तो उसको सेंसेशन महसूस होती है, चाहे वो पेन की हो चाहे प्लेजर की हो. If you learn not to contact the objects of the world, you will be free from external influences and find greater pleasure within. कहते अगर आप सीख लेते हैं ना ऑब्जेक्ट के साथ, मतलब इस तरह से कांटेक्ट नहीं होना और आप उसका प्रभाव आप पे नहीं पड़ता, एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंसेस का प्रभाव नहीं पड़ता, एंड आपको जो प्लेजर है वो अंदर से आता है. फिर स्वामी जी कहते हैं स्वामी वाज वेरी लर्नर एंड स्पोक ओनली इंग्लिश. फॉर आवर्स ही वुड टॉक अबाउट इंग्लिश लिटरेचर एंड वी वुड डिस्कस स्वामी रामा तीर्थ's life and works. स्वामी रामा तीर्थ भी एक बहुत बड़े संत हुए हैं. कहते हैं he received his Master of Science degree from Oxford University and his Doctorate of Science from Lahore University. Though he lectured on the universality of Vedanta philosophy, he detested the alien rule in India. During this time, before India's independence, there was a small sect of modern Swamis who did not practice meditation. They were young and learned and understanding the condition of the country. They participated in the freedom movement. I call them politician Swamis. क्योंकि वो थोड़े मॉडर्न तरह के स्वामी थे ना जो प्रैक्टिस नहीं करते थे मेडिटेशन की, तो कहते मैं इनको पॉलिटिशियन स्वामीज कहता था. They would say external freedom first, internal freedom later on. पहले बाहर की एक्सटर्नल फ्रीडम मिले फिर हम अंदर की फ्रीडम के बारे में बात करेंगे. This Swami was a politician Swami. Actually, he had become a Swami out of frustration after seeing the condition of the country. He was kind and gentle, but he could be very rebellious. He did not follow the normal disciplines of a renunciate, but rather spent his whole time totally preoccupied with the thought of overthrowing British rule in India. This was his worship and aim of life. तो ये स्वामी जी का बस यही aim था कि Britishers हमारे देश से निकल जाए. Sometimes he was arrested twice a day for insulting Britishers. He would annoy British officers by abruptly telling them to leave the country. He would call them names and say, "You are speaking English and you don't know grammar. You don't know your own language." What a tragedy that the imperial government sends such uneducated people who do not come from good families to India. So wo jo Swami the, you know, he would call a spade. He would not mince his words and he would just blatantly, you know, speak in front of Britishers. Once when we were walking in the hills outside Simla, a British officer came galloping on his horse from the opposite direction. He stopped his horse suddenly when he saw us and yelled, "You monkeys, get out of the way." He jerked the reins and fell off the horse onto the road. कहते फिर स्वामी ने उनको क्या बोला? The Swami told him, "We have every right to walk on this road. This is my country. Mind your own business. Get up, get on your horse and go away. I'm not your slave." The next day, the Swami was arrested, but within 2 hours, he was released. The governor of that state knew him from London and also knew that the Swami would create more problems if he were in jail. So, काफी वो ब्रेव, काफी वैलियंट रहे हैं. अगर उनको अरेस्ट भी किया जाता था तो वो 2 घंटे बाद उनको रिलीज कर दिया था, कि उनको पता था कि इतना उनका है कि जेल में रहेंगे तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट हो जाएंगी. During this time, I had some prejudice against the British rulers of India and thought of helping the freedom movement. The Swami said, "Come on, let's use guns and one by one destroy these British administrators." He sincerely wanted me to join him and fight the British. He said that it was not a sin. If someone comes to your house and tries to destroy your culture, why can't you defend yourself? तो वो स्वामी जी कितने उनमें वो patriotism जो मतलब कूट कूट कर भरा था. He was the most bitter Swami I had ever met. स्वामी जी कहते मैंने इतना bitter स्वामी कभी नहीं देखा अपनी जिंदगी में. Swami ji कहते, "I believed in Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy, psychology and movement, but I never took an active part in politics. I wanted to influence the Swami to leave politics, and he wanted to influence me to enter politics." वो स्वामी रामी जी को मतलब स्वामी रामा जी को चाहते थे पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन कर लें, पर कहते मैं चाहता था कि ये छोड़ दे. This went on for 4 months. He tried to persuade me, but my master said that I should not join any political party. My master said, "You are from Cosmos and a citizen of the world. Why identify with the people of India only?" उनके मास्टर ने बहुत अच्छी सीख दी. कहते ये तुम्हें वो यूनिवर्सल अप्रोच रखनी पड़ेगी ना, सिर्फ तुम अपने देश के लिए क्यों सोच रहे हो? तुम्हें सारी दुनिया का सोचना है. ये सारी सृष्टि हमारी है. Your concern should be for the whole of humanity. First, have inner strength, sharpen your intellect, learn to control your emotions, and then take action. Fanatic devotion to a country, even one as spiritually great as India, does not befit a man of God. कहते जो ईश्वर का जो बंदा है ना, वो इतना फैनेटिक इतना ही होना चाहिए, क्योंकि चाहे वो भारत देश जो स्पिरिचुअलिज्म में सबसे आगे उसी का क्यों ना हो, क्योंकि तुम्हें सबका सोचना है. It's like you have to think about the whole humanity. My master told me not to become involved in violence and even predicted the date of independence for India. उनके मास्टर ने पहले ही प्रेडिक्ट कर दिया था कि भारत देश को कब आजादी मिलेगी. Later the Simla Swami and I separated. तो ये जो शिमला के स्वामी थे, he was very, very, very bitter Swami, because he would not hold himself. He would say whatever he wanted to say. Okay, we decided to tread our own path. तभी अलग हो गई दोनों. The same year, sorry. स्वामी जी कहते उसी साल, ये वाले जो स्वामी है शिमला वाले, he was shot by the British police in the Kulu Valley of the Himalayas. तो वो तो बहुत ही खिलाफ थे ना ब्रिटिश के, तो ऑब्वियसली ब्रिटिशर्स के लिए तो फिर बहुत वो हो गया था कि इनको रास्ते से हटाया जाए, तो उन्होंने उनको मार दिया गोली से. During my stay in Simla, I met a British missionary who was writing a book on Indian culture and philosophy. He allowed me to read the manuscript. I was shocked to read the numerous lies he had written about India, her culture, civilization and philosophy. तो स्वामी जी उस ब्रिटिश मिशनरी के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं ना, जो किताब लिख रहा था, पर स्वामी जी कहते I was so shocked. I was taken aback, जब मुझे पता लगा कि ये तो सब झूठ लिख रहा है उसमें. He even tried to convert me and tempt me to marry a rich British girl. Conversion to what? Lifestyle and culture habits? I love Christianity because of my love for Christ and the Bible, but this man created a repulsion in my mind. After that, I avoided the Christian missionaries who roamed around the cities, villages, and mountains. These people were financed and supported by the British government and were politicians in the garb of missionaries. By writing such books, they knowingly try to damage the ancient Vedic civilization. They torture the Vedic culture and philosophy, which is a mother of several religions, including Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. स्वामी जी ने देखा वो जो मिशनरी था, उनका सोल पर्पस क्या था? लोगों के दिमाग को खराब करना, पॉइजन करना, और अपनी जो इंडिया की जो वैदिक सिविलाइजेशन है वो खत्म हो जाए, और अपने ब्रिटिश रूल को आगे लेके जाना. So all cock and bull story just started writing in his book. They distorted the Vedic culture and philosophy, which is the mother of several religions, including Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Uske baad, the Swami in Simla used to oppose such missionaries and say, "You missionaries are not true followers of Christ and have no knowledge of the Bible." For 200 to 300 years, these British missionaries tried to destroy the civilization of India, but they could not accomplish this for two main reasons. Number one, the architects, the custodians of Indian culture and civilization are the women. And second, 75% of the people of India live in the villages and remain untouched by the influence of the British rulers and missionaries. क्योंकि उनका जोर चलता तो वो सब कुछ ही खराब डिस्ट्रॉय कर देते पूरी तरह civilization. तो इन चीजों ने बचा लिया. In spite of several hundred years of alien rule in India, they could not change the Indian civilization. They were successful, though, in changing the language and dress and introducing some, British customs. The British government launched an extensive campaign by publishing such literature as the book written by the missionary. Indian writers and scholars were suppressed and even arrested and jailed if they refuted these books or wrote against the campaign. Such literature published by the Britishers created confusion and misguided Western scholars and travelers, thereby depriving them of studying the vast wealth of Indian literature, philosophy, and science. ये तो हमें हिस्ट्री में भी हमने बहुत बारी पढ़ा है कि इनका सोल पर्पस क्या था, कि अपने राज्य को आगे बढ़ाना और जितने भी जो भारतीय सभ्यता है उसको खत्म करना. कहते although Paul Deussen, Max Muller, Goethe, and other writers wrote books on yoga and the system of Indian philosophy in the Upanishads, confusion and misunderstanding still remain among the general Western public. Not a single book on yoga was written with honesty and sincerity by Western writers before Annie Besant, the famous theosophist who became president of the Congress Party of India, and Sir John Woodrow. तो कहते कोई भी चीज ऑनेस्टी से नहीं लिखी गई थी कि एनी बेसेंट जी से पहले और सर जॉन वुड्रॉफ से पहले. He was the foremost of the Western writers on Indian philosophy, though he could not write on as many scriptures as he desired. He introduced the philosophy of Tantra to the Western world. I pity travelers and so-called writers who still persist in writing books on yoga, philosophy, Tantra, and various spiritual subjects without studying. तो स्वामी जी कहते कितने तो लोग ऐसे ही हैं ना, उनको नॉलेज नहीं है, डेप्थ में जाते नहीं हैं, अपने आप से इन जो इतने they are so profound topics like yoga, philosophy, tantra, उस पे किताबें जो ये लिखते हैं और ना तो उन्होंने खुद प्रैक्टिस किया होता है. कहते a distorted history of India was intentionally introduced in the schools. Because of this, Indian students forget their culture and history. तो जान के उन्होंने distorted history of India मतलब उसके बारे में इस तरह schools में introduce किया ये किताबों में, ताकि ये जो students हैं ना वो they should forget about their culture and they should adopt the Western culture. कहते to lose touch with one's tradition is to lose touch with oneself. Education in India was completely changed by the British. All the subjects were taught in the English medium, and every student was forced to pray according to the way of the British missionaries. There was no freedom of thought, so there could be no freedom of speech and action. If someone did not have an education of that kind imparted by the British, he could never get a good job. Through this, I learned how power corrupts a nation and destroys its culture and civilization. ये स्कूल्स में हमने हिस्ट्री में कैसे पढ़ा कि ब्रिटिशर्स ने उनकी इंटेंशन क्या थी, उन्होंने नेशन को कैसे करप्ट कर दिया और किस तरह से कल्चर को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया, हमारी सिविलाइजेशन को. The surest way to destroy a country and its culture is by first changing its language. The British were successful because they did this. Even after 30 years of independence, English is still India's official language. Since India did not have one native language, there was and still is a lack of communication among the various states of India. Indian Rajas had fought among themselves and could not make a united front. Thus, India suffered for several hundred years. Unifying the language of India is one of the greatest tasks that the people and the government have yet to complete. A good sound language produces good literature, which enriches their culture, education, and civilization. In India, this is still lacking, and that is why countrymen from various parts of the land cannot communicate even today. Swami ji कहते हैं, the present system of education and upbringing in India should be carefully adapted to the varied requirements of the Indian civilization. The construction of new types of schools, national literature, and art should be encouraged everywhere. We have still to think about the fundamental reconstruction of the whole order of Indian society through literature, science, art, and education. The passive method of thinking and living needs to be changed into positive and active dynamism. The most characteristic trait of education should be inseparable, connecting the various cultures and the collective civilization. Remember, though, the words of the sages who advise you to acquire and to utilize all that which was valuable in the development of human thought and culture in the Asian history. Learn thou quickly to realize the necessity of giving truly international education to the rising generation of India. The Swami from Simla made me aware that before British rule, India was very rich, not only in culture, civilization, and spirituality, but also in jewels and gold. वो तो हमें पता है, भारत को हमेशा से सोने की चिड़िया कहा जाता था पहले. Many miseries were created by invaders like the Mughals after they crossed the river Sindhu from the west of India, and later by the French, the Portuguese, and finally the British. They destroyed the financial, economic, cultural, and historical India, which was once called the Golden Bird. India's precious jewels, gold, and other riches were looted by these invaders and taken to their own countries. Once people have abundance and there was much less disparity between the rich and poor, then the caste system in India was structured according to the distribution of labor, but it was completely changed by the Britishers, who created hatred with a policy of divide and rule. When I tell this, I have no hatred. It is the naked truth. Many travelers even today do not know true Indian history. They repeat the same question again and again. If India is spiritual, why is there so much poverty? कहते कितने ट्रैवलर्स सोचते हैं जो भारत देश की संस्कृति है, स्पिरिचुअलिज्म है, कितनी आगे है, फिर भी यहाँ गरीबी क्यों है? I'm not a politician, but many people ask me why India is so poor. So I say that spirituality and economy could not compromise in any of this history, any of the histories of the world. They are two entirely different things. Religion and politics always remain separate in India, and spiritual people never become involved in politics. These two diverse forces in India could not unite. Therefore, power decreased. The power in India is not because of spirituality. Sorry, the poverty in India is not because of spirituality, but because of not practicing spirituality. कहते गरीबी इस करके नहीं है, गरीबी स्पिरिचुअलिटी करके नहीं है, इस करके है कि इधर स्पिरिचुअलिज्म प्रैक्टिस नहीं किया जाता रियल सेंस में, and not knowing the technique of integrating spirituality with external life. Those leading the country now should become aware of this fact. India suffers because the leaders and people of the country totally still do not have a unified vision for uplifting the country as a whole. They do not have an answer to the population problem, nor does there seem to be any immediate solution. I think India is surviving only because of a rich spiritual and cultural heritage. तो स्वामी जी कहते हैं जो इंडिया सर्वाइव कर रहा है ना अब तक, वो इसी करके क्योंकि इसका जो स्पिरिचुअल और कल्चरल हेरिटेज है, इट्स रियली रियली रिच. कहते culture and civilization are two separable culture and civilization are two inseparable aspects of the lifestyle of community, country, or nation. A man may be considered cultured if he dresses nicely and then presents himself before others, but it does not necessarily make him a civilized person. So civilization has nothing to do with your outfit or what your attire you're wearing. Okay, the civilization refers to the way a nation thinks and feels, to its development of ideals such as non-killing, compassion, sincerity, and faithfulness. Culture is an external way of life. Culture is a flower, while civilization is like the fragrance of the flower. A man may be poor and yet be a civilized person. A cultured man without civilization, who may be successful in the external world, is not helpful for society because he lacks the inner qualities and virtues which enrich the growth of the individual and the nation. Culture is external, civilization is internal. In the modern world, the integration of these two is necessary. Indian civilization is very rich, but its culture has become pseudo-English culture, which still creates problems in India today. So, Sangaji, deliberately, I read it fast because, it was quite lengthy, but we know the gist, and we've already read in our schools how, our country was ruled and, how ruled by the aliens, and, here they mean the Britishers, the aliens, and kis tarah se, they distorted our language. And they had still, that Western effect is lingering on, or otherwise, our country is so it's हमारा country कितना आगे है. It's so progressive in terms of spiritualism, and it's really rich. But the thing is that the people who are ruling, they don't know how to go about the country's real needs. So the vision has to be really, really different if our country has to be uplifted. Okay, so now we come to Swamiji's meeting, with Maharishi Ramanji. बहुत बहुत वो भी बड़े महान संत हुए हैं, और वो भी अपने he practiced silence, and his silence was direct teaching. He imparted his teaching of silence by his mere grace, filled with glance. और Raman Maharishi जी कहते थे कि that happiness is your nature. It's not wrong to desire it, but what is wrong is seeking it outside when it is inside. जो खुशी है ना वो तो अंदर से होती है, और हम लोग बाहर उसको ढूंढते हैं. अब जब स्वामी जी महर्षि रमन जी से मिले, कहते डॉक्टर टी.एन. दत्ता, a prominent physician from Gazipur, UP, wrote to me that he was coming to see me at Nasik, where I was living. कहते after visiting, he told me his reason for coming. He said he was very anxious to take me with him to Arunachal in South India to have darshan of Maharishi Raman. In the winter of 1949, we left for Arunachal. My stay at the ashram was brief but very pleasant. During those days, Maharishi Raman was observing silence. There were several foreign students staying in the ashram. Shastriji, one of his prominent disciples, would give discourses, and Maharishi Raman would sit quietly. वो चुप बैठे रहते थे, पर उनके एक शिष्य थे शास्त्री जी, वही preach करते थे. कहते there was one thing that I found in his presence which was very rare and which I seldom found elsewhere. For those whose hearts were open to the voice of silence, which was perennially radiating in the ashram, just sitting near him was enough to answer any question arising from within. तो स्वामी जी कहते कि उनके पास बैठने से ही सब सवालों के जवाब मिल जाते थे. ऐसी silence, it would radiate so much of positive thing, positivity, कि सिर्फ बैठने से ही जवाब मिल जाते थे. कहते it is true that to be in the presence of great man is the same as experiencing savikalp samadhi. तो कहते ये तो बिल्कुल सही है. ऐसे महान पुरुषों के साथ बैठने से आपको वो ये जो पर्टिकुलर समाधि का नाम ले रहे हैं स्वामी जी, सविकल्प समाधि, वो ऑटोमेटिकली आ जाती है. कहते Maharishi Raman did not have a physical guru. He is the greatest and the holiest man born on the soil of India within 100 years period, said Dr. Radhakrishnan. A glance of such man purifies the way of the soul. कहते ये जो रमन महर्षि है ना, इनके अपने को फिजिकल गुरु नहीं थे, पर इनके ऐसे ग्लैंस में इतनी शक्ति है कि आपकी आत्मा को वैसे ही निखार देती है, प्योर कर देती है. कहते according to Maharishi Raman, contemplating on the single query, who am I, can lead the aspirant to the state of self-realization. देखो अभी who am I क्या है, हम स्पिरिट हैं, हम ईश्वर के वो ये जो सुप्रीम सोल है उसी में से निकली हुई हम रूहें हैं. तो अगर इस चीज के पीछे पड़ जाए, अभी हम हैं कौन, हमारी असलियत क्या है, तो आपको ऑटोमेटिकली इट विल लीड टू योर सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन. कहते though this method of contemplation is the foundation stone of the philosophies of both the East and the West, it was revived again by Maharishi Raman. कहते the entire Vedanta philosophy was brought into practice by the Maharishi. He put the Iliad in a nutshell. By knowing oneself, one knows the self of all. आप अपने आप को जानोगे तो आपको सब पता लग जाएगा, सब चीजों को जान जाओगे. The very simple, profound method of self-inquiry is accepted by both Easterners and Westerners. After 5 days staying in the spiritually vibrant atmosphere of Arunachal, we came back to Nasik. After visiting this great sage, I decided to resign the dignity and prestige of Shankaracharya. For a renunciate like myself, leading such a busy life had become burdensome and boring. तो स्वामी जी कहते जो 5 दिन का वो मैं वहां रहा, इतना मुझे वाइब्रेंट एटमॉस्फेयर मिला ना ऑफ अरुणाचल, और जब मैं वापस नासिक में आया, इन ग्रेट सेज को मिलने के बाद ही मैंने सोचा था कि आई एम गोइंग टू रिजाइन द डिग्निटी एंड प्रेस्टीज ऑफ शंकराचार्य. कहते फॉर अ renunciate like myself, leading such a busy life had become burdensome and boring. By my visit to Arunachal and the darshan of the Maharishi only added fuel to that fire which was already burning within me. Renounce thee, and you will attain. This echoed in my heart so powerfully that my stay at Nasik became more and more impossible. Yet it was not easy for me to run away, abruptly leaving all the responsibilities. But one day the courage came to me, and I left Nasik for my Himalayan home. I have a firm conviction that no one can be enlightened by anyone else, but sages inspire and give inner strength, without which self-enlightenment is impossible. In today's world, human beings do not have an example to follow. There is no one to inspire them, and that is why enlightenment seems to be so difficult. Great sages are the source of inspiration and enlightenment. स्वामी जी कहते हैं कि मैं ये मानता हूं कि जो enlightenment है ना, आपको कोई वैसे दे नहीं सकता. आपको जो ये sages है ना, inspired जरूर कर सकते हैं, आपको अंदर की शक्ति दे सकते हैं, और उसके अलावा सेल्फ एलाइनमेंट नहीं आ सकता. कहते हैं आजकल की दुनिया में कौन है, आपको सच्चा तो कोई मिलता नहीं जिसको आप फॉलो कर सके, कोई आपको इस तरह से इंस्पायर नहीं कर सकता. बट संगत जी ये है ना कि वी आर सो फॉर्चुनेट दैट गुरु जी ने हमें डायरेक्ट अपनी छत्र छाया में रखा हुआ है. और I feel what more enlightenment we can ask for, as we have light as our guru. The God descended and became our guru directly. So we are so lucky that we don't have to strive for making someone our guru, because God is our guru. Okay, अब इनकी जो मुलाकात होती है वो भी सर औरोबिंदो जी से हुई है. वो इनके बारे में हमें स्वामी रामा जी बताने जा रहे हैं. कहते I was unbearable for me to stay in the demanding environment of Nasik, and I thought of visiting Pondicherry and meeting and Sri Aurobindo. कहते the students of these ashrams were very devoted and firm in the conviction that the way of life they led was supreme. तो इस आश्रम के जो disciples थे, अपने स्टूडेंट्स थे, उनको पूरी तरह they were convinced कि जो जिस तरह से वो जी रहे हैं, it's really supreme. कहते the day I arrived at Pondicherry, there was a concert given by a famous musician who was a disciple of Sri Aurobindo. The mother was kind enough to arrange for me to stay in one of the quarters and to hear the devotional songs sung by the greater devotee. वहाँ concert चल रहा था और वहाँ एक बहुत जो बड़े devotee थे वो गाना गा रहे थे, devotional songs गा रहे थे. कहते my stay in Pondicherry for 21 days gave me enough time to strengthen the aspirations which I received at the ashram of Maharishi Raman in Arunachal. कहते जब मैं 21 दिन वहां रहा ना, तो उसने ही मुझे काफी समय मिल गया कि जो मैंने वहां से पाया था ना, महर्षि रमन से, अरुणाचल जी से, तो मेरे को वो समय मिल गया कि उस चीज को मैं स्ट्रेंथन कर सकूं जो मैं एस्पायर कर रहा था चीजों को. कहते during those days of my inner turmoil, I was very restless. On one side, I was being pulled by renunciation, and on the other side, by the call of duty which had been assigned to me. While at Pondicherry, I met Sri Aurobindo several times, and he was kind enough to talk to me. His personality was very overpowering and inspiring. I started respecting the modern and intellectual approach of integral yoga. I want to give you the gist of what I understood this philosophy to be. जो भी उन्होंने औरबिंदो जी से सीखा, कहते I just want to give you a gist. I would just want to give you a glimpse of that, what I learned. स्वामी जी कहते हैं, okay, Sri Aurobindo's philosophy is described as integral non-dualism. This is an approach which seeks to understand reality in its fundamental oneness. The differences which we observe are looked upon as developments taking place within the framework of all-inclusive unity of the absolute. Integral non-dualism erases the distinctions of ethics, religion, logic, and metaphysics. Sri Aurobindo's conviction is that absolute reality in its essence is non-dual, non-conceptual, and logically indefinable. It is only accessible to direct experience through the penetrative side of pure spiritual intuition. It's a little heavy reading for me, I guess, for Sangat also, but I'm just going to read it. According to non-dualism, Advaita reality and beyond materialism, causation, structure, and number, the same conviction is expressed in the philosophy of Nirgun Brahman in Vedanta, in the concept of Shunyata in Buddhist philosophy, in the concept of Tayo in Chinese philosophy, and in the philosophy of Tattavita in Tantra. ये मेरे ऊपर से निकल रही है चीजें, मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं लग रहा. Anyways, the philosophy of Tantra consistently maintains that one can advance spiritually by awakening the latent primal force called the Kundalini. When the spiritual potential is systematically channeled along higher levels, living becomes effortless, spontaneous, and attuned to the ultimate goal of existence. Vaishnavism recommends the method of love and devotion through wholehearted self-surrender to God. Christian mysticism and Sufism have a close resemblance to Vaishnavism in the respect, let thy will not mine be done is the secret of spiritual growth. ये मुझे समझ लग रहा है कि हाँ ईश्वर आपकी इच्छा जो आप चाहते हैं वो ही हो. Let thy will not mine be done. जैसा आपको लगता है ईश्वर ये करें, ये भी है one of the spiritual, ये जो आपकी spiritual growth करेगा. Your will is my will, God. Vedanta, by contrast, lays stress upon the method of contemplation and self-inquiry. It includes discrimination between the self and the non-self, and then the renunciation of emotional attachments to the not-self. As soon as false identifications with the not-self are removed, the indwelling light of truth is revealed. आगे है, according to Aurobindo's integral philosophy, both the lower nature had and the higher nature of man and the universe spring from the same ultimate reality. The lower nature is a physical force in the world and the source of instinctual drives in the unconscious mind. Man's higher nature is composed of pure consciousness and spiritual aspirations. It evolves out of the matrix of the lower nature through the awareness of the ultimate creative force called Shakti. Aurobindo calls this force Divine Mother. Man has to faithfully be aware of this force in order to attain the realization of the absolute. This awareness implies a tranquil integration of the material and the spiritual. According to the Aurobindo, the supraphysical can only be really mastered in its fullness when we keep our feet firmly on the physical. This awareness is developed through two methods. The first is the integration of meditation with action. Through meditation, one tears the veil of ignorance. He thus realizes his true self, which is the very self of all. Through selfless and loving actions, one relates creativity with others. The second method of awareness of the divine lies in the knowledge of the ascending and descending forces of consciousness. These powerful movements gradually expand the spiritual outlook and help one to rise the higher level of consciousness. The descending movement brings down the light and power of higher consciousness into all strata of all material existence. This consists of transforming the physical into effective channels of expression for the universal love and all unifying truth. Integral non-dualism sees evolution as a progressive self-manifestation of the universal spirit in material conditions. The whole universe is an expression or a play of the divine. Man's highest destiny is to be fully aware of the universal spirit and thus advance the cause of evolution. Therefore, the essence of integral yoga lies in the active and effective awareness of the individual with the superconscious divine. Sri Aurobindo synthesizes the ancient philosophy of Advaita in the belief that is not necessary for modern man to realize the goal of non-dualistic asceticism through renunciation. Meditation in action with non-attachment also prepares the sadhak for awakening the primal force Kundalini. By the realization of the union of Shakti and Shiva, humanity can be elevated to a higher awareness. I was fully convinced that Sri Aurobindo's philosophy would have wide recognition by the modern methods of India and especially of the West, but I was accustomed to quiet and solitude and could not adjust to the numerous activities of the ashram like dramas, concerts, and tennis. I returned to Nasik and determined to leave for the Himalayas. Because we really don't want to skip any of the pages, but seriously, today's reading was a heavy reading, और मेरे को ये तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं समझ लगा, because I can only, perceive simple things, which is explained in a simple manner, or because कहते हैं ना गुरुजी ने कही था गुरुजी मैं की लेना तो मैं की लेना चक्रास तो ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੋਂ, because you have made our path so easier. Just love God and be a good human being. अच्छे human being बनो, और हमें तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है कि हमें कुछ रिनाउंस करना है. We have to be renunciate. जो गृहस्थ आश्रम में रह के दुनिया में रह के भी उससे ऊपर रहना सीख गया, I think that person is truly renunciate. You really don't have to go somewhere to meditate. घर विच ही सब कुछ हैगा, गुरु जी कहते करे ही सब कुछ हैगा. तो मुझे क्षमा करना इन मास्टर से मैं क्षमा मांगती हूँ, कई चीजें नहीं समझ लगती, ऊपर से निकल जाती हैं, बिकॉज गुरुजी ने साडा रास्ता बड़ा सौखा बनाया हुआ है. But yes, we can't leave any page. It would be wrong. We don't have to skip. We're just looking forward, to reading Swami Rama's journey आगे, जब वो, क्योंकि अभी तो हमने सारा उनका पीरियड पढ़ा ना यूथ में भी, बट वो बहुत महान रू रहे हैं स्वामी रामा जी, के इतने मास्टर से वो मिले हैं, मुझे तो लगता नहीं कि कोई सेजेस ऐसे रह गए हों जिनको वो ना मिले. हर एक को, कोई भी अपने फीमेल गुरुजी हो, कोई मेल गुरुजीज हो, कोई यंग गुरुजीज हो, कोई ओल्ड गुरुजीज हो, हर तरह के उनको मौका मिला है. तो किस तरह की महान रूह रहे होंगे, और उनके थ्रू वी आल्सो आर गेटिंग द ग्लिम्स ऑफ दीज सेजेस, बिकॉज हर एक की फिलॉसफी डिफरेंट है, हर एक का अपना वो है, बट इट लीड्स टू वन डेस्टिनेशन, दैट इज गॉड एंड दैट्स अ गुरुजी. So thank you Guruji for today's reading. But हाँ Guruji, मैंने कुछ आज समझ नहीं लगा वैसे. Anyways Guruji, thank you for your beautiful reading, and thank you Sangat ji for bearing with me. आज बहुत बहुत मेरी, I don't know how I was speaking, मुझे तो लग रहा है मैं खुद ही, I was getting disoriented, but ये होता है. And so looking forward to read more chapters in more interesting way. Thank you Ekta Shilpi ji, and thank you Sangat ji. Thank you Guru ji. Thank you Swami Rama ji.
Thank you auntie. शुक्राना गुरुजी का. Thank you so much. जय गुरुजी.